Hey guys, so recently Chowkeg or Calkeg reached out to the community with a couple extra speakers he had available from his upgrades he recently did on his Miyoo Mini. A couple other people in the community like Jim had been telling me that these speaker upgrades were definitely worth doing, so I said sure, I'll have one. He shipped one out to me and let's take a look at it. So this is what the speaker actually looked like when it arrived. It came in a little plastic bag wrapped in bubble wrap. So the first thing you want to do before we start anything else is just shut off your Miyoo Mini. Next thing you want to do is just open the back and take out the battery. Now the little battery pull tab here was folded over, so it made it a little difficult to get it out. Next, make sure just to grab a small Phillips screwdriver. So in total there are 6 screws we need to remove, 1 in each corner, and then 2 under the battery. Now these last 2 screws are a little harder to get out. Once you unscrew them, just flip the console over and they'll fall out. Next, make sure to remove your micro SD card so we don't damage it by accident. Next thing you want to do after you get the screws out is pull the back off. Just grab it from the bottom and pull it up. There are no clips, so it should come off easy. Now the ribbon cable is what you want to be the most careful with. Just grab a little plastic prying tool or a little plastic piece and then just grab the corner here, grab it with your finger and then pull up. Now once you get that pulled, pull it about halfway up and then stop. Once you get that tape up about halfway, the next thing you want to do is remove the lock here, holding the ribbon cable in place. Don't use anything metal because the lock is very, very thin. It will break it. Now the safest way to disengage the lock without damaging it is probably just using your fingernail. Once you push it over, you'll notice that the pins are no longer visible. That means you're ready to pull out the ribbon cable. Now the safest way for us to pull out this ribbon cable is just by pulling up the tape instead of sticking a tool underneath it, because then that would risk scratching it. Now once you've pulled the ribbon cable out the entire way and you've peeled it up, the next thing you want to do is remove the motherboard. Just come down here to the Type-C plug and pull up and it should pop out. And if any of you wondered what the Miyoo Mini motherboard looks like, here's a couple close-ups of it. Now removing the speaker is a little tough because there's a little bit of glue on it. Just make sure you have a small flat blade screwdriver. Stick it in the side here. There should be a little opening on the side. Now once that screwdriver is in that little notch, just give it a little pull and it should pop out. And this is what the stock Miyoo Mini speaker looks like. Now, without first having checked the new speaker, I wasn't sure if I needed to reuse this glue, so I pushed it down here, try to reuse it if I needed to. Now, as soon as I flipped over the new speaker, I knew it had some adhesive on it, so we can just pull this old stuff out so we can use the new one that comes with the speaker. Now, once you're ready to stick the new speaker in, just peel off the bottom, make sure the sticky side goes down, and you want to make sure these little two tabs up here aim to the top. Now, the first time I dropped it in here, it didn't go in straight. I actually thought I damaged the speaker since the grill is on the bottom, so I pulled it out just to make sure that I didn't damage anything before I put it back in. But the speaker looks fine. Now, once the speaker's in place, I just made sure it was a little snug before I put the back on. And it looks like it's on there good. Now, I will note, the speaker does look like it sticks out a little bit more than the other one. I think it's a little thicker, but it definitely is a little heavier than the other one as well. Next, all we have to do is just put the motherboard back on and reattach the ribbon cable. Now, when you put it back in, make sure to slot the volume wheel in first, or you will break the board or the volume wheel. Now, once the volume wheel is in, just slide it down slowly and it should slot into place. Another thing to note, just make sure the power button is up so it doesn't get underneath the board when you're pushing it down. After putting the board back in, just make sure to peel back the tape and line it up with the lock, and it should push right in. Also, just make sure that the lock is still up when you push this in. Now, to make sure it's in the whole way, you can actually just pull up on the tape and it'll pull the whole ribbon cable over, locking it in. Once it's in, just make sure to push down the lock and push the tape back over. Now that the board is back in, all we have left to do is just reattach the back and put the battery back in. As you noted from when we pulled it off, there's no clips on this, so it doesn't really click in the place, it just kind of falls right on the back. All these screws are the same length, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. When putting the screws back in, just make sure to do opposite corners first. Don't tighten them the entire way until the two are in, then put the other ones in, and then just tighten wrist tight. Now it'll look like the back isn't attaching to the front the entire way until you get all 6 of the screws back in place. Now once you get the 4 corner screws in, don't put the 2 under the battery in until you put the battery back in and test the speaker to make sure it works. Once you know the speaker works, then put the 2 screws underneath the battery back in, and that's all there is to upgrading your Miyoo Mini speaker. Thanks for watching. Here's a couple sample audio clips between the original Miyoo Mini speaker, the upgraded Miyoo Mini speaker, and the 351 MP.